Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and these are Charter Moms chats. And we're doing things a little differently this summer. We're focusing on, kind of enrichment and activities that families can do at home to support their kids' learning. But we're checking in with some of our favorite experts about education. And so today our guest is David Hubalik, and he's with Basis Charter Schools. And he's been with Basis for a number of years, and most recently has had kind of operations administrative roles. But he's taking on a more hands-on role. He's moving from Arizona back to Texas and becoming the principal at Basis Jack Lewis Jr. campus, which is the new campus that's opening on the sort of far west northwest side of San Antonio in August. So, David, thank you for joining us on Charter Moms Chats, and I'm really excited to talk about STEM education at Basis and what families can do with their kids this summer.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me. You've always been really, really great with us, and we love partnering with you. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so for folks who, I feel like at SHR Moms, we are always talking about Basis. I can't get enough of it. I mean, because it's offering a world-class education for free, in San Antonio as well as in other places like Arizona. So we talk about Basis a lot, but there may be folks who aren't familiar with Basis yet. So can you kind of talk about the mission and vision? Like, what does Basis Charter Schools offer that's different?
Sure. So, I think, our mission says it all, which is we're trying to educate students at a globally competitive level through a transformative K-12 education. So what does that actually mean, right? So when we think about what that means, sometimes on its face, it's not that different than what you would get other places, right? You can get advanced placement other places. And they do a great job with those students. But I think one of the things that makes, or two of the things that makes us unique, one is our curriculum is specifically designed and works kind of beginning with the end in mind. This is where we want our kiddos to, what we want them to have access to when they leave us, which is if they want to go to RISD, we've gotten great students into RISD, or if they want to go to a small liberal arts college in the Midwest and wear tweed, or they want to go to Georgia Tech, right? That we want to make sure that we prepare them for what they want and what they're passionate about at that next level. And the way that we do that with all of our students, you rightly pointed out, it's free. We're not private, which means we're open enrollment and open to all students. So the only way to kind of ensure that every student has access to this is our job is to remove the barriers. So, we don't have a gifted and talented program. It's not just gifted and talented that have access to this high level curriculum, this college preparatory curriculum. It's everybody. And so we have to do that very methodically and strategically. And that is specifically how we've designed our curriculum. It's almost entirely proprietary. And it ensures that every student has access to the steps that prepare them to be successful on these college preparatory exams. The other way that we ensure that we're doing these things that I think is different is that when we evaluate our performance, right, and every year, and I'm looking at it, I wish I had it right here. Every year, our families get an outcomes magazine, which shares with our families how we're doing, how our students are doing. So that way there's an accountability, right? We're accountability partners. You as a family, you're trusting the most important thing in your life to us, at least in terms of the education. And so we need to prove to you and not just say that we're doing a good job. We have to prove to you. So we have external and internal benchmarks that we strategically place to ensure that our students are performing at the level that our mission seeks to perform. And so, sometimes they're not. And, we work very, very hard to ensure that every student has that great opportunity to matriculate to a great school and then ultimately be successful. So that's it in a nutshell. It's the elevator pitch.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I just, as a side note, like I really encourage families to, like, if possible, like, go to an open house, tour a Basis campus, because you kind of have to see it for yourselves. Like, it's what, like, and the magazine is great because you see, like, oh my gosh, like, look at all these, look at what all these students are doing, like things like senior projects, but then when you actually visit a campus, you see how much fun they're having. And I think that's really important. That's kind of what we're getting at today, which is that, like sort of our theme of our different summer posts and interviews and events is that we want to encourage families to, like, roll up their sleeves and, like, do educational stuff for their kids, but it can look like play. It can be, and that's what the blog post is about. It's like, kind of like math based, games and play that families can do with their kids. So I guess like what are you observing about like, like sort of at this stage of the pandemic, right? That, we've had like multiple disrupted school years and, kids experience distance learning. And my observation was that, BASIS adapted very quickly, to offering virtual learning. Um, but you may be having students join BASIS, from other settings, right? Whether it was a homeschool setting or a virtual learning setting. What are you observing about like where students are at?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and I'll go back to one of the things you said before I dive into that because it's a deep one. Going back to our schools and learning made fun is one of our informal core values is nerds are cool, right? We want our students to and what that means is we want them to love learning, right? It's not that learning is something separate that we do or something that we value. It's part of who we are, and we aspire to that. And that leads to the answer to your question, which is um, I think that students are adaptable. They're malleable, right? So it was a tough couple of years. We reopened our doors pretty quickly because we feel like the in person instruction is really important, paramount, really. Um, but um, but ultimately, there were effects of that time, and not even just the time behind the screen, but kind of the disjointed nature of the years, because that disruption over and over again was, it's potentially very harmful for children. And so, initially we did see the effects. You know, the most notable, I think, was uh, becoming more distracted, right? So this is something that we fall into as adults, right? So I'm working right now and I'm looking up, I see an email come in, and then my focus is over here, or then I get a Teams message on this screen, and so my attention turns here. And so I think one of the biggest things that we noticed was not necessarily misbehaviors, like students were not necessarily acting out, although certainly there are moments when they did, but it was mostly in kind of regaining a focus on what's happening around them. And one of the ways that we really sought to kind of address that, I think, is leveraging the unique nature of both children and what happened with at home learning, which was all right. How do, instead of like pushing back against that kind of distracted nature, which we ultimately want to develop good habits, but we can lean into that and make sure that the transition from what happened at home to on in person was not so vast, right? So we engaged our students in more activities, more kind of hands-on learning, and made sure that also from a pedagogical standpoint, we were never spending too much time on one particular thing. Now, again, we're not trying to kind of like continue like the give into the continuation of a distracted learning environment, but certainly not immediately push against it, because the behaviors began to manifest themselves pretty quickly. Um, so sure, like if we're delivering direct instruction, we're not sitting there for 30 minutes talking at students, right? We're mixing in activities, the application of the information that I just shared with you. We're applying it through getting up, going to the whiteboard, or whether it's through an activity. So I feel like our kiddos have done very, very well. I've been in a lot of classrooms this year. um, I think we've been fortunate in that initially when the students came back, those behaviors were there, but they slowly our students have gotten back to really loving learning and engaging with their teachers, because our teachers are excited and they're passionate about what they're what they're delivering, and they're passionate about their job. I mean, I was just on a call, not to belabor the point because it's a very long answer, but we're gearing up for our summer institute, for our new teachers in the summertime, and I was meeting with one of our trainers yesterday, and it was supposed to be a 20-minute conversation, highly technical or entirely technical. And we just started talking about the AP environmental science course, the interdisciplinary nature of it, and the things that we used to do. And it went on for about 40 minutes. And I got so excited just talking to her. I could only imagine that the kids in her class would just be glued to her as she's teaching them. And that's kind of the way that we kind of move past it. So anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think another part of BASIS culture that I've observed is, building. students skills to be accountable for themselves, right? Like the CJ, right? The communications journal, right? And
Right.
so I imagine that, with distance learning, maybe the kids weren't practicing those skills as much, but then getting them back in person where they, I'm kind of making assumptions here, but like, like was there sort of self-regulation, organization, those kind of executive function skills that they had to kind of rebuild?
And so that's an interesting question. So again, one of our core values is that our students are leaders and not spectators in their own education. Um, and that's really, really important for us. And how that manifests is kind of nuanced and kind of funky and also a little old school, right? So our students have communication journals, which are just agendas. But the difference between us and maybe some other environments that I've been in is that we actually use them with complete fidelity. Every one of us follows a calendar. That's a critical skill that we need to teach our students. I'm sure most of us have been around folks who maybe are a little less organized, and sometimes that can be difficult to to work with them, right? And not that we don't like them or care for them or love them, but it's just, there's different organizational strategies. We know that that's a critical skill for success. So we actually, sorry, I thought I put this on mute. We did our best to actually make sure that we didn't lose those things. So teach Doug Lamov and his team had a blog, and we were following that closely. It actually came out with a book, teaching
Oh
online.
yeah, yeah.
And so we one of their skills is dissolving the screen, and so we said, all right, here's your CJ post for the day. On three, when you're done, I want you to hold it up. And for a short time this year, I was actually teaching fourth, fifth, and sixth grade history online for our students there. And so we tried to do our best to maintain some continuity of skill building, although it's, again, it's it's different, and it's not as good as that direct instruction with the teacher in person.
Yeah,
So,
I know. This is me, I guess, bringing my own lens to this. I can't help it, but like for me, like building independence is something that is on my mind a lot this summer. And I think to the extent that like schools have been able to build that into students, I think that's a real benefit. And I think summer is an opportunity for that. And I think part of that is creating these opportunities to play that are not, where it's not so much right. I mean, there's a time for direct instruction, like what the basic teachers are doing, but there's also time to like explore and do projects. And that's kind of what's on the blog. So I was wondering if you could kind of comment on like 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 what can families do at home, and sort of like what are some things that strategies that basis teachers use, like to get kids excited about math and science, that maybe families could kind of adapt that for sort of summer enrichment.
yeah, so there's no question, right? The research has been done. The data and what it's telling us is sound, is that play is extremely important in the lives of children. But not just play, right? I think that there is some value. I was recently or not discussing, but I was reading a study, and I can't even remember who it was by or what it was. But what they were doing was essentially putting students or children in their room, and of course they don't want to be in the room. They don't want to, be by themselves and things like that. But pretty soon, once that fades, what they were actually to find was when students left to their own devices will be incredibly creative when given the opportunity to play, and that has meaningful long-term effects to what they do in the classroom. And so, like I said, it's done, right? That's sound science, if you will. Um, but there's different modalities of play, and so we recognize that um, yes, direct instruction or instruction in a classroom is important, but sometimes understanding the developmental needs of children, we need to get outside of that. And yeah, you may not get as much bang for your buck, at least in terms of, I want my kids to learn all their math facts in 2 weeks or something like that, right? It's going to be a longer process because they're engaged in this more creative process. But in the end, we actually think that there's going to be a much more meaningful outcome later, because what you have is essentially the application of what it is that you're trying to teach them in real time. And so what we encourage our families to do, what we ask those, especially here in the blog, is take your students outside. We gave some activities where it was doing math problems on a piece of paper is critical, right, in the beginning. But if you can't then take that outside, and not necessarily outside per se, although in this case it is, it's gonna there's gonna be a breaking point. There's gonna be a point where they've kind of hit their ceiling. And so even at a young age, and this is something that I do with my own children. We were just out in the backyard yesterday, and we were around the pool, and my 2-year-old has a habit of taking rocks, but instead of throwing them in the pool, which is a problem, I had them kind of line them up, and then I took my 3-year-old and had her start counting them one by one. And then we brought sticks, right? And so she's learning, hey, this is a stick, hey, this is a rock, but I'm also counting them. And then I brought my second grader over, and this is one of the activities that's in there, is we then kind of line them up as a matrix, and because she's starting her math facts, at least in terms of multiplication. So it was a way for us to, it was a fun way for my children to be outside, which has inherent benefits as well. And to work with each other, and through one singular activity, I was actually able to support the developmental and academic growth of my children through a single activity. And of course, then they're helping each other out. So there's other benefits that you get there, which is one of also within our core, our core values, which is, we help one another, right? Academic success is not a zero-sum game. It, unfortunately, in some cases has become that, with as competitive as college acceptances can be, but that's not what we want. And so we want them to build each other up, and that's what we encourage our families, and there's a lot of inherent benefits. And we even do that in our day-to-day. If you've been to our North Central campus, they have a beautiful outdoor garden, and they've got the painted rocks, and the same is true at some of our other campuses. We want the students to engage in learning through the being outdoors, and kind of applying what it is that they're learning in the classroom outside. So yeah.
So like when your kids are, doing things with the rocks and the sticks, and they're helping each other, like you see the learning that's happening, but to them, they see it as like, this is family time. We're hanging out by the pool. We're playing with nature. Like this is a good time.
That's right. I mean, they're cognitively aware that they're actually learning. It's, I will say my 2-year-old was struggling somewhat with not throwing the rocks in the pool. So that was a challenge. But at some point, I'm sure we'll have a conversation about buoyancy and how lives it. So.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. Well, and you talked about earlier that like at basis the curriculum is designed, it's to prepare students for like to have all these choices, like what colleges they go to, what careers they go to, and it's building towards that. And so, and and you mentioned about things like teamwork is important for that. And also I think like we don't want students to have their lives like so structured and so directed that the first time that they're in their dorm room by themselves, or the first time they're in their workplace office at their desk or their cube by themselves, that they don't know what's the first thing to do, right? Like they have to, like there's, right. So it's like if you put a child in a room and expect them to do creative play, there's going to be some discomfort at first of like, I understand, like, what am I supposed to be practicing music? No. Am I supposed to be doing this? No. What do I do? Right. But then they push through that, and then that's where the creativity comes through. And then they get into the flow, and they're not questioning themselves anymore about what am I supposed to be doing? I'm waiting for someone to tell me what to do.
That's exactly right. And we build that, as I mentioned before, we kind of build that. And what it looks like at the younger grades is a little bit different than the older grades. But and I'll give a couple of examples, right? So when we think about, all right, so we think about if the end is advanced placement exams, which it's really not for us. It's actually that next step, which is success in college. But if we bring that down even to the youngest levels, if that's the end, what we need to do is we need our students to understand, first and foremost, that the disciplines, they're not mutually exclusive, right? At some point, it's very difficult to have a general science class and learn a lot about physics. But we recognize at an early age, we want our students, it wasn't by accident that Da Vinci was this incredible inventor, but also an amazing artist. That's not by accident. And so we recognize that need, and especially at a younger age when play and kind of creative design is so critical for their development. We have in our youngest grades, there's a couple different courses that we have to kind of to kind of lean in on this. We have our engineering course, which is a way in which we're able to apply what they're learning in their specifically their math and science courses, but also our fine arts courses into a common project, and they work together on these. And it's in essentially we're establishing the framework and we're letting them use that kind of creative development, the creative process to bring it to fruition. One of my favorite examples of this is actually our head of school that's opening our Pflugerville school up there in north of Austin. He's got a background in puppetry, right? So that is his formal education. So Mr. Schaefer, just fascinating guy, just is really fun to just talk with. But so his background is in puppetry, and he taught engineering for our school. So it's not just engineers that are teaching these things. And one of his favorite lessons that he developed, right? It's about a 3-week lesson. Is they actually the students design and then build marionettes. So we're integrating math, we're integrating art, we're integrating. I mean, there's and even what they're learning in their science courses, right? Because it's a very intricate process. And he was showing me. He actually showed me one of the ones that him and his students built. And right, you put your hand in the, I don't know what it's called, and he'll probably yell at me for that. And I move. Yeah, there we go. You move your pinky, and it lifts the hand up, and then the thumb. So there's a lot of technical knowledge that goes into that. And these are, second and third graders that build these things. And so they were able to apply everything. And at no point and I wasn't there, but I cannot imagine at any point these students were like, learning, right? And it was just because then even me as a grown adult, he's showing me this and I'm learning and I'm not even realizing it because it's just so fascinating and cool. And that's by design, right? That is absolutely by design, because our students, when they get to their physics courses, they recognize, okay, this is math, but it's applied math, right? And so it's this interesting an intentional process, and that we lean in on that creative development of our students because it's so necessary, and they're having fun. It's it's play. So
that is so wow. I love that example about the building marionettes, because I've witnessed engineering classes, and often there's things involving levers, or like let's build a catapult, or but it feels like to call those like simple machines, it seems like a misnomer, because like the intricacy of a marionette, it's like, yes, these are levers, but there's like it goes way beyond that when you're controlling that many parts.
that's right. It's anything but simple. That is for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But, it teaches you about simple machines, and like so many gigantic things in the world, or complex things in the world, really are built out of just many, many simple machines.
That's
And,
right.
and that desire to create, to problem solve, and, make something cool.
Yeah, it was. And I think the other piece that I'll just add before we move on is, that is the type of teacher that our families have come to appreciate about Basis, is that they one of the necessary requirements of a Basis teacher is subject knowledge. One reason for that is because we want them to be knowledgeable about the information that they're teaching at a very nuanced level. But the byproduct of that is, if you are spending tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars in on one thing, going in one direction, and all of that time, you are no doubt passionate about it. And so it's very clear that Mr. Schaefer was passionate about this, and he was able to bring his students into that process, and they're better mathematicians, they're better engineers for it.
Yeah, yeah, and better artists.
And better artists, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Because all those elements. I know we've been talking a lot about STEM, but Basis has excellent fine arts programs. I've heard the orchestra practicing, and I've seen student art on the wall. So so it's definitely cultivating all the aspects of their personality, like not just STEM. Although Basis has a reputation for that, and and if you compare like what students take at different age grade levels, like they are doing an advanced curriculum.
That's right. I mean, so when we say we're a liberal arts, we are truly liberal arts. There is value in each of the disciplines, and it's like an orchestra, right? An orchestra cannot be successful with just percussion or just the fiddle, or it is quite literally a liberal arts in the truest sense of the word. We our students are engaged in fine arts at every grade level, right? Because we know that that is also necessary. So. Um, and even when we get to our high school level, our students must take advanced placement exams. Well, they're not just taking; they have to sit exams in the core area, all of the core areas, not just the areas of their choosing. Again, because there's this quote that I like to say all the time is, you don't know what you know unless you can see what you say. That is true with mathematicians and engineers. They have to be able to speak, they have to be able to write, they have to be able to articulate, and that comes through a creative process and is enhanced by the arts. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, so I want to ask you specifically about the Jack Lewis Junior campus because that's you're going to be very hands on there, and I always like talking about like sort of what's new and noteworthy in the charter school world in San Antonio. So it's a new campus opening up, but like what do families need to know about that campus? Like where it's located, what grade levels it serves. I've seen construction pictures on the Facebook page. It's really exciting.
yeah. So what I would say first and foremost is join our Facebook page, right? The Basis San Antonio Jack Lewis Junior Campus Facebook page. I post every day, and I'm the one that does it, because I'm really excited. I'm passionate about not just schools, but opening a school, building a culture, and the posts that we make every day are by design. We want our families to know exactly who we are, and so we talk about our basic standards of excellence. We make jokes. Today is National Apple Pie Day, so when we announce to our families. It is Happy National Pie Day. Actually, today is also National Frog Leaping Day. So, so get outside and do some frog leaps. And so we're very intentional. We bring our families in. You get a chance to see the wonderful teaching staff we're bringing in, the wonderful culture that we're establishing right out the gate. And it's a beautiful place to come to work and especially come to school. It's right there on Ellison Road, right next to SeaWorld. We're adjacent to SeaWorld between Northwest Vista College and SeaWorld. So it's a beautiful, growing part of town. We're opening grades K-6 for next year. So if you're interested, please go to base or enroll basistx.com. We have limited seats available right now in certain grades. Our wait lists are established at every grade level except for fifth right now, but they're very short. And as with any new school, there's a lot of fluidity. So get in now if you're interested. Even if you're not 100% sure, submit that application. And what will happen is we are doing events, continual events. Just 2 weeks ago, we had our family fiesta puzzling picnic. So it's consistent with what we're talking about. So our families came in, we were grilling dogs and portobello mushrooms for our vegetarian and vegan friends. And so, but each of the kiddos went to different stages, and they were doing the metal puzzles, and they were making their mascots out of they call them snake puzzles, because we're also in the process of figuring out what we want our mascot to be. And so at no point did those kiddos realize that they were learning, right? They were using their mind. And the best part was, especially in the metal puzzles room, we had to help the parents out, but the kids got them pretty cool. So there's plenty of opportunities to learn more, plenty of opportunities to engage with our community, because that's really what we're about, is making sure, because we're a K-12, families feel comfortable calling Basis San Antonio Jack Lewis Junior home for their kiddos until they're ready to send them off to college. So check us out. Join our Facebook page. We send a monthly newsletter to all registered families as well. We post that to our social media as well, but there's plenty of opportunities to learn more. Or you can just give me a call. I love talking with families. So.
Yeah, it's I think it's a special opportunity to be like a founding family at a campus because it's part of establishing that culture. Like so there's gonna be basis boosters, right? And like all the fun stuff. I mean, like I've seen. I mean, basis teachers, like they are extraordinary people, right? They're subject matter experts. They love what they do. They do so much for the kids, but then the parents do so much for the teachers, right? There's always like different food and different holidays, and You know, it's just, and you know, and I see like, you know, as students get involved in clubs and sports, like, you know, they express their interests. So, you know, like a basis campus is so much more than just what's happening in the classroom. There's you know, all different elements involved.
And that's right. And actually, it's funny that you say that because so our families, we've been trying hard to engage with our families, so much so that we now have a booster club forming. We have families that are even at this early stage wanting to dive in and really support the community from the parent perspective. And so in this upcoming newsletter that we'll be sending to our families, and again, posted to the website, families will be able to express their interest in joining the booster club that's now forming. So we're myself and my counterpart, Ken Tyrell, are just absolutely thrilled with how it's going, the interest, and that we've had a great opportunity. We've met a lot of children, future students, founding students, and it gets me excited. I absolutely adore this. I can't believe I get paid for this. So
Yeah. Well, and what you described about that get together for families, like that's a what a great way to introduce them to how Basis does things. Because it's all, you know, nerds are cool, but we're all gonna roll up our hands and have fun. And you know, the
right.
kids are learning. They think they're playing, but they're actually learning about math and science and creativity and problem solving along the way.
That's right. Yeah, we also had a Play-Doh station. So if you go to our Facebook page, we're doing this mascot madness where the students are eventually going to, they search for clues online as to what it is. And then once they figure it out, we put it on a bracket like March Madness, and then the students are going to vote. So each week we drop another one. So they were making out of Play-Doh the mascot that they wanted to see, or they wanted us to at least throw out there for voting. So it was really, really fun and really creative. So
Yeah.
lots of smiles.
And you turn that question loose on a bunch of basis students, you might get suggestions like, you know, pangolins or sea
That's
slugs, or, you know, you never know, right?
Yeah, a kestrel was one of them. And I said, I'm not sure what that is, but I'll figure it out quickly.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think yeah, one of the great things about basis culture is like the kids get listened to, right? That the adults know that these kids are coming in with their own passions and knowledge, and everyone gets to have their say. It's not just from the teacher adults down to the kids. It's like everybody's coming in with ideas, and everyone gets to have their say.
That's right. I had no idea what Minecraft was until I had about 100 fifth graders breaking down my door, demanding a Minecraft club. So, okay. And then 2 weeks later, we had about 100, I mean, no joke, about 100 fifth graders competing. Maybe you compete in Minecraft. My son could tell me, but you're right. That's exactly who we are, which is we want our students to have a voice. We want their students to have a part in the development of their experience. And so, it's a fun place to be.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you, David, for joining me for, talking through all these ideas about, like, I hope the families come away with a better idea of what Basis is about, but also like, even if, maybe they're not a Basis family yet, but they get ideas about, ways to have fun with their kids this summer where they're having play and building independence, but like also, boosting their math and science skills along the way.
Yeah, they learn pretty quickly that hard work is a good thing. We work hard. There's no doubt about it. We have high expectations for our students, and we're not necessarily, like I said, sorry, let me back up and say, we have high expectations. We work very, very hard to make sure our students meet those. And they have to work hard too, but that doesn't mean you can't have fun while doing it. And, that's what we're about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the kids are learning a lot, but they're also celebrating and getting
Right.
to express themselves. Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. All right. Well, thank you so much, David.
Well, thank you for having me. I really had fun.